Yo, stop acting light skin.
Welcome everyone to the am I allowed to say this? Sure? Okay. The Light Skinned Opinion Podcast with your host, author, and culture commentator Chris Maddox, blogger and overall asshole Alf954. And there's no way I'm saying this. It's offensive. Sure this is okay? Fine. And our dark-skinned producer, Parrish Thompson. What do we have today, boys? I mean, guys, not boys, because... Oh, fuck it.
Yo, welcome to the Light Skin Opinions podcast. That boy with that fresh manual reverb in this place. What's going on? I am your host, Christopher Maddox. Across the screen from me digitally, I got my good friend at Alf954. And we are the hosts of the Light Skin Opinions podcast. We taking over this thing for the night because
real quick,
there's a vibe that's taking over the country. You're gonna mess up my poetry, cuz go ahead.
My bad. Real quick, this is normally the time for Five on the Floor, which is Floor is Yours. We do this every Thursday night at 8 o'clock. We welcome comments, opinions, and questions from the audience. We love you guys. I'm one of the hosts of Five on the Floor. Really appreciate y'all. But right now, NBA's boycotting. There's violence and there's protests and there's riots in the street. Another black man just got shot 7 times in his back. So it feels like a lot of the things that we were talking about a few weeks ago, nothing has changed. So we felt that in the spirit of the times and the movement, the best thing to do right now was shift the focus from basketball analysis to what's really going on right now. And we wanted to have black voices out here tonight talking to you guys about basketball, about sports, about social justice, about what's going on in America. So that's what we did. That's why Light Skin Opinions has taken over this feed tonight with the blessing of Mr. Ethan J. Skolnick, just because, listen, it's bigger than basketball right now. And we are going to focus on the NBA, right, Chris?
We are, because you have to focus on the NBA. You focus on the front runner, you focus on the pioneer. Nobody cares about the guy at the end of the wagon train. You see me? We want to know who the guy is in the front. And ever since this issue began to permeate the country and everything that's going on, the NBA has been at the and sometimes everything else going on with it. I want to acknowledge this first about the NBA, and then we can get in because we might end up having to trash them. We see right now how big a risk it was for them to go all in with the players in the first place. And I say that meaning how big a risk it was for them, because now they're in a place where there is no more room for performative acts of support. There's no more room for names on jerseys. Now you really got to put something behind what you're doing. So this could really cost the NBA something, but nothing that's worth anything is free. You see me? So I want them to pay that cost. I hope Adam Silver and all of them are willing to go through the gauntlet and actually, because they're going to take a hit already as we come on. I was just reading, and this just tells you why the players feel the way they feel a little bit. Did you guys see Jared Kushner's condescending, his whole response to it, and then Mike Pence's chief of staff, absurd, silly. And when I think about it, I'm like, they are basically saying you don't matter, which is what the entire debate is about. Mike Pence's chief of staff, Jared Kushner dismisses.
But tell us what Mike Pence's chief of staff said, because I missed this one.
Oh, this just happened. So they asked him about it, and the guy says that he believes the protests are absurd and they're silly. And he closes his comments, I'm paraphrasing here, by saying that we don't really care if they don't play or not. Okay. Basically saying they have no weight, they have no collateral, so it doesn't rise.
They have no value.
There you go. We all understand similes, right? We all can make inferences. And so that right, I read that right before we came on, and I'm like, you see, this is the tide that they are pushing against. So the NBA, I say all that to set this statement up. The NBA needs anybody who's listening to this, anyone who supports, to help push against that tide, because it's building, and it's building with while the president has a platform to go in front of the nation every night and talk his shit, and so they're going to need a lot of help to bust through that.
Well, Chris, one of the things, this is where I kind of want to start on. The idea that these players boycotted, and first let's talk about the Milwaukee Bucks. Milwaukee's in Wisconsin, so is Kenosha, right? This hit close to home for them. They had a player a couple years ago, that was actually assaulted by police officers. This is an issue that hit home for them personally, right?
And George Hill was one of the players who it took some convincing to come into the bubble in the first place.
Exactly. Okay, so the players had their reservations about coming to the bubble in the first place. How was this going to change anything? And then they were convinced by the LeBron Jameses, the Chris Pauls, and not to say anything bad about them, that, listen, we can use this platform for change. Now they get in there. They put Black Lives Matters on the court. They put stuff on their back, say their names. Education reform, which I'm not sure what that one was. The white guys put a lot of equality on their back. Like, everybody was out here about this movement. And then they're thinking they're making a change, and boom, look, this shit happens again. We've changed nothing, right?
But I gotta say, only a fool, NBA included. That's why I started out by saying that. Only a fool would have thought that you could do that and it would be enough. Okay. I think some of us were already waiting. We knew that there was going to be another shooting. There always is. So that's what I'm saying. Now you got to go ahead and get your ass in the game. You dig?
So this performative stuff that you were talking about before, and that's why a lot of times, like, I laugh at people like, oh, look who kneeled, look who didn't. None of this stuff actually really matters, right? Until you start hitting people in their pockets. So now this thing happens with Jacob Blake in Minnesota. Shot 7 times in his back, supposedly reaching for a knife against 3 police officers, and they had to shoot him. They had to try to kill this man and ended up paralyzed over a knife.
We have to acknowledge that apparently some police officers are the most cowardly of lions, my dude.
Bro.
Bulletproof vests, Batman utility belt,
yes,
RoboCop boots,
all kinds of sprays and mace and all this
shades.
Stuff. Bro, I've been attacked with a knife. You know what I'm saying? Like,
boy, you have lived a life.
This shit happens.
With a knife.
I remember some guy was trying to attack my brother with a knife, and he was like, "Tell the pussy to put his knife away," and the dude put the knife away. Like, listen,
hey, Parrish, how much gravy do you think would have leaked onto the floor?
Oh, come on,
Alf and a knife.
We're trying to be serious.
This is still a light-skinned opinion. Go ahead.
But so what I'm trying to say is, so now they see this shit happen. Now, what I need everybody to understand is stop holding these young men to this standard that you don't hold nobody else to. You don't hold your politicians to it. So a lot of things, and I even did it. I said it on Twitter when I was like, if they are going to protest, I hope they have an end game in sight, right? I hope they have an end game in sight. I hope they have a list of demands. I hope they've organized. We are holding them to a standard that congressmen are not held to. Right?
Not at all.
There's a whole bunch of congressmen who are out here, black, white, Democrat, Republican, talking about Black Lives Matter that don't have a platform to address the issues that we are complaining about. But you want Giannis Antetokounmpo to have a platform before he sits down. You know what? Can we put it like this? Those young black men were angry. And you know what they did? They didn't want to dance for you that night.
No, and that's
plain and simple. Let's call it as is. They did not want to dance for you on Wednesday night. They were mad. And you know what? It ain't about what their platform is. It's not about what change is going to come from it. They ain't want to dance for your monkey asses that night. They wanted to sit back and they wanted to talk to the Attorney General of Wisconsin and ask, what the hell y'all going to do for us? And that was it. Like, stop putting more weight on the boycott. You know what I'm saying?
And yes, and I 850% agree with you, because at that point nobody can tell me nothing when what my job is essentially tap dancing, is entertaining. This is not an essential service. You dig what I'm saying? And I that's one of the parts that I appreciate about it. But I love that this happened. I think it had to happen because it's always going to be hard. I started this off with that metaphor about being a pioneer. The NBA for the LA Lakers, the Clippers, to say we just out the playoffs off the top. Do you know how much that cost LeBron personally, legacy-wise, dynasty-wise? If LeBron doesn't get a championship this year, now he got to extend into his 18th year. The chances of him winning his eighth, I mean, come on. If he's basically saying, I will sacrifice a piece of my legacy so that I can make a point, make a statement. And people sometimes say, well, what does that mean? Like, it's not like the NBA has the power to do anything, but people act like they don't understand how dominoes work. And you see what has happened in professional sports in the United States of America when the NBA took that first step. Now you say, well, how is that going to help anything? Donald Trump is on the national stage, probably right now, is not yet, because he like to get on late. He got to eat burgers. But he's about to say economy. Sports in all of its forms and all of its mediums produces so much money for the economy and everybody involved. You hit the pockets of certain individuals. Now you start to see things happen. What the NBA players need to ask for is, look, owners, all of y'all big money dudes who move in those circles. Now we need you to join this fight in terms of helping us pull strings, helping us get the ears of these people, because we're not looking for a fix that's going to happen by the time we get to the end of this year. What we're looking for is something that you can now insert yourself into and move and develop and grow into the same way that we did with everything else. Jackie Robinson goes from, entering professional baseball, and now the black man, the plight of the black man is worth enough that Major League Baseball teams have to postpone games in that small amount of time. So we need that same approach in the political avenue, if what I'm saying is making any sense.
Well,
to pioneer into it, which is what some of these players are doing, and then grow and develop and spread enough until the weight that we told.
What I'm and listen, I know sometimes the thing with Rosa Parks gets misconstrued as she was just tired and she knew. Listen, that was an organized protest, but there are times where people just there are times where people just get fed up, and a revolution or a protest or something jumps off from just people being tired, right? So if the Milwaukee Bucks were just tired of what they were seeing and they didn't want to go play basketball for y'all, stop asking these young black men to solve the problems. Like, that was my thing with Jared Kushner. Oh, if LeBron doesn't want to play, come to the table with some substantive change. That's y'all job. LeBron James is a basketball player. It's y'all job to change shit. Why?
But this is what I'm saying, because by saying that, what you're saying is that you don't measure up enough to come talk to me. That's why I started off by saying that condescending nature is what is the tide that this protest is stemming against. They're going to play basketball again, right? This pause in the economy, this pause in the momentum of what they thought was progress is maybe not enough, but it is a start. And if it continues to happen in different parts, now you see the NHL, who basically brushed it off. Now they're having to come in because you look away. Now, what I'm unclear about is, and this is where I need a little help from maybe y'all and y'all opinions. What are these companies really worried about? If Donald Trump is in such a position, where he has this megaphone, yet the NBA and all of these people who have these vast demographic of fans are willing to concede some things, does that mean the country is willing to concede some things? You understand what I'm asking? If the NBA is willing to give a little bit, the NFL, does that stand in and then say, well, maybe the country as overall is moving in that direction?
When they poll this stuff, right? When they poll, do Black Lives Matter? When they poll, do we need police reform? It's a majority of Americans, black, white, brown, whatever have you, agree with this. Because listen, what we got to remember, it's not just black people or brown people that are unhappy with policing. A lot of people out there are unhappy with policing, unhappy with for-profit prisons and the entire criminal justice system as a whole. We are disproportionately affected by it, but we're not the only people that don't like what's happening. So what happens is something happens, and like there's a guy in the chat right now, some guy named Adolf, whatever his name is. He's trying to sit there and paint the picture of this dangerous black man running to his car for a knife, right? So what happens is, even if you don't like police, like I know people right now who I've grown up my whole life who be like, F the police. They sell weed, smoke weed, do all kinds of drugs, drive drunk all day, every day of the week. But the second a black man gets shot, why did he resist? Bro, I seen you cuss out cops all the time. I've seen you coked up on the corner in Tallahassee at FSU on the street. I've seen you, bro. But now it's like, oh, why are they resisting? Why can't you just listen to the cops? Bro, I seen you. I grew up with you. But now, that's the problem. That's what it is. It's like they shift the whole conversation from policing in this country is messed up. It needs reform, and they make it a racial issue. And now we're on separate sides of the same coin. So that's one of the biggest issues with this is they'll find a reason, like this guy Aiden in the comments. Why they should have shot him? He was defending himself.
But these
seven
are also
times in the back like this.
But these are also the same
close.
people.
That's defending yourself in the back.
In the back, cuz while pulling the t-shirt,
get some better training.
But these are the same people then who find all type of ways to justify all of the crazy stuff that Trump has done. My dude Aiden can also possibly justify some type of morality in paying off porn stars and strippers. He probably can also find some type of
born again.
Some type of explanatory morality for why Jerry Falwell Jr., who's a big time Trump supporter, is having cuckold relationships.
Like we all haven't wanted to see our wife.
What I'm saying? These are the same people
with a pool boy. I mean, come on. You watch Pornhub.
But this comes to my next point though, and this is where sometimes I lose people. What I learned in that 2016 election, when Hillary Clinton miraculously loses, thanks to the Electoral College, what I learned then is that people talk a lot of stuff and they don't really mean it. You can't trust polls. You can't trust what people are saying in interviews, because when people get in the privacy of that ballot box, sometimes they vote exactly what their heart is. And we saw that in 2016, right? So I don't trust any of that. And when people do all that flip-flopping and this, that, and the other, Jerry Jones is one of them. Remember Jerry Jones kneeled? We ain't heard from Jerry Jones since, all of these guys are willing to do just enough visually because they know when it comes down to it, there's nothing that's really going to hold them accountable. And so what the NBA players are doing is a chance to try and establish some agency to say, look, I do have some control over this. And they have a lot more than they think, I heard them talking about it on one of the shows today. If the NFL players followed this same model, like, could you imagine I
think they will, by the way.
You really do?
I mean, some NFL teams didn't practice today.
I saw that not practicing, but the NFL is a whole nother.
I'm about to do the Allen Iverson practice.
Yo, did y'all see the Troy Vincent joint? With Troy Vincent talking about, how he was affected by, everything that happened with Jacob Blake. And Troy Vincent has a very powerful voice in the NFL, but his voice, the reason why he was crying, and one of the undertones was that despite all my emotion and all my ability, I can't get nothing done here. And that's really the thing that at some point you have to say, all right, I'm just not doing it. I didn't go into work today. And as a form of and people's like, well, what that got to do with you? But it was more of a symbolic, metaphorical thing for myself to say, hey, look, I do have some agency somewhat to say that if I disagree with the way things are happening in this world, the one little piece of something I can control is how I dish out my services.
I think that's what a protest is in general. I think, part of the problem with what got lost in the whole Kaepernick thing is because, they were like, people got upset about the way, the owners didn't let them protest. People aren't going to let you protest. You got to just protest.
You got to just protest. You're so right.
So I think the NBA players doing this, it signifies that it's okay if we walk out. We could walk out and we'll stand together. I think that's why
the root of protest
team didn't play yesterday, and I think that's why NFL players are ultimately they've been looking for a reason to act up anyway.
They've been looking.
So I think this,
and a lot of them, let me say this though, because we talking about holding folks accountable. A lot of the dudes in the NFL, they say it's not about, I forget what it is. It's not equal. It's not like what you give, but it's like what it costs. The NFL guys, it's going to cost them a lot more than the NFL dudes. But sometimes
contracts.
on the sacrifice.
Exactly.
And that was the problem with the Kaepernick protest. Nobody was willing to stand behind
Nobody was willing to sacrifice. So what I'm looking around now, so that brings me back to Braun. Braun says, I'm opting out the playoffs. That's Braun sacrificing a lot. And the two like seeds that grow protests are civil disobedience and sacrifice. That when we just watched all these great eulogies for a man who willingly got in good trouble as a means to sacrifice his freedom temporarily in various jail cells for the purposes of civil disobedience as part of a grander protest. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's what it has to be. So if the NFL is going to move that way, they're going to have to say, man, we got to be really willing to, to take a loss here.
Chris, one of the things I'm tired of is black men and black women continuously having to be the ones to make sacrifices, right?
But that's the lot.
And that's what I know. But listen, man, and this is where I'm tired at this point. You know what I mean? I'm exhausted. As a black man, I'm exhausted, like having to keep seeing these young brothers and sisters, like the players sit out.
Talk about it. Hold on, I'm sorry to let you go. Sisters is important too.
Thank you. Let's talk about the WNBA.
The WNBA are the realest and trillest. Those women are admirable. You know what I'm saying?
Maya Moore.
Oh my gosh, if we want to say the NFL has a tough road to hoe in terms of sacrifice, being a professional women's basketball player in the United States of America is already tenuous. Yes. You already got like 3 teams you play for. You're traveling all around the world of hoop to make the money that you want to make. So to be willing to risk that, for come on now, they deserve all types of accommodations.
But what I was getting at is, like, you have these people out here, and you have and frankly white sports writers sitting here talking about, well, then what was the point of this? How about you stop worrying about what the point of it is? What we doing? What are you doing with all your white privilege? Stop worrying about stop worrying about a bunch of young black men being upset and wanting to just, like I said before, not dance for y'all for a night or two and take some time off to breathe and because what happened is they had to contemplate, what are we doing? Why are we doing this? And you know what? And the reporting from Ethan Skolnick and other people is that Udonis Haslam stepped up. Other people stepped up in those meetings and said, we came out here for a reason. We sacrificed time with our family. We entered this bubble. You know what I'm saying? We shut ourselves off from the outside world. Let's finish what we started. Now, whether they want to leave and never play again or they decide to play again, I don't fault them for either one. And I definitely don't fault them for saying, you know what? We ain't doing it today. Come holla at us on Saturday because we mad at y'all right now. Don't talk to us. Don't talk to us. We going back to the room. Like, don't talk to us for a few days.
I would rather they said bump it and just shut the whole season off.
If they shut the playoffs down, that would speak.
Yeah, man. That's what I'm talking about.
But see, here's the problem. You shut the playoffs down, and this is where I start to think of why do these men have to keep sacrificing, right? We have to think in terms of long-term ramifications for the salary cap and what's going to happen to black. Listen. No,
I got an answer to that. Go ahead and finish your
thing. We're talking about black wealth going forward, right?
Yeah.
But you have these black men who are going to sacrifice their money for years to come. And they're the ones that have to. No, listen, Chris, why do they have to keep sacrificing their money? Like, what they need to do is say, and this, I'm not saying what they need or what not to do. Because, listen, it's hard for everybody.
I'm about to say what they need.
But what I would love for them to do is say, hey, listen, y'all want us to keep playing? This is what you guys need to do. Mm-hmm. This is the amount of money that you need to, LeBron's his vote campaign. You need to donate $400 million to this. You need to put their money on. Stop putting your own money and livelihood on the line. Put their money and livelihood on the line because you hold the power.
Can I respond?
Go ahead.
One of my favorite quotes is necessity is the mother of invention. Necessity is the mother of innovation. Shut it down, fellas. And here's why I say that. There's way you do not have to. We've been talking this whole time about all of this, and you a funny one. I'm gonna come for you too, Alpha. I think about it now because you a big time progressive guy, right? Shut the system down, rebuild it. Oh, but don't touch my sports though. Just work within that sports. No. But let me finish.
See, no. You're not. First of all, you're not going to mischaracterize me about me caring about sports. Don't mischaracterize me about me.
Go ahead.
Mischaracterize me about what I'm worried about is their wealth going forward, and I'm worried about these young black men who are building generational wealth, and that's what I'm worried about.
Generational wealth does not have to come through the system. Is my point. Go ahead, babe.
My bad. I'm just saying them losing money. Yes, they would ultimately lose a little bit of money, but it's still not the machine. That they would shut the machine down. You know, you're talking about ESPN losing money. You're talking about all sorts of net. You're talking about a lot of people losing money.
But that's what here's. So can I get to it? One of the first things I did for the 5 Region Sports Network, I went down there and I covered Cube's Big 3 thing. I came on the show and I talked about it. Here you go. You roll your eyes. But here's the point that I'm making. Hold on. The players have the power. They're you can shut it down. And if we're worried so much about, oh my gosh, if we shut it down, the collective bargaining agreement, boom, boom, boom. What I said, the mother of invention, therefore we would need other places to play. What the players need to do, they got enough money, a whole lot of them. Invest in your own shit. You see The Rock just bought the XFL. We look at that and we laugh. The Rock bought the XFL. The Rock, Dwayne The Rock Johnson, has purchased an alternative boo-boo baby JV NFL. And we could say, hold on, and we could say, oh, it's boo-boo. But hold on. We could say, oh, it's this and all is that. But you started it off by saying generational wealth. Ours. Generationally. If you worried about what's going on with LeBron James' family right now, who worried about that? But what if LeBron James bought a team within the XFL? You talking about generational wealth. That's what I'm talking about. So we can't be all progressive with, whoa. And then when we go to the players, we like, okay, let's just push and let's just, no, you be willing to say, sacrifice it. We got enough peeps. Me, Drake, Puffy, Jigga, we got enough bread between us to put together an 18 traveling, whatever.
Okay, see, here's my problem.
It's 2020. Do your thing.
Here's my problem. You talking about 8 teams, and you're talking about the LeBrons and the Paul George and the Kawhi Leonards and all the. Now, there's a lot of dudes that are not Paul George, Kawhi Leonard, and all those guys. There's guys at the end of the bench. It's Chris Silva on the Miami Heat who can make hundreds of thousands of dollars for his family right now, and you're asking this man to sacrifice for a cause. And it's time to stop asking that dude to sacrifice. That's my problem. I'm tired of these guys having a sacrifice. I'm not even just talking about the guys at the top. We're talking about 30 teams, 450 players, right? Mm-hmm. The collective bargaining, they lose money in these playoffs. It ain't the top guys that are going to lose out. It's the guys at the bottom that are going to lose out. And that's what I'm talking about. It ain't just
that. But what are we? But let me couch it this way. What are we losing out?
And Chris, this is my end game is this. Yes, you use your leverage. Yes, you use your power. But you use your leverage and power to make the guys at the top, the billionaires, pay for what's happening.
All right,
not the millionaires. And that's my point.
We just started out by saying that they did all of these things. The billionaires, this is what they gave you was Black Lives Matter on the court. They gave you go ahead and put stuff on the back of your jersey. I'll allow that. First of all, let's not forget that part was that somebody had to allow that to happen. And
not to mention they only gave you certain names, certain phrases you were allowed to put on the back of your jersey.
So they did all of that, right? The man still gets shot in his back. We still are where we started at, right? We cannot think that there is somehow going to be some miraculous changes occurring is what I'm saying here. What I am talking about is if we're talking about generational wealth and all that, we will always be at the whim of these billionaires who do not have our interests. And now I sound like you when you're talking about Bernie. If you remain in the current system as it is, you will always be at the whim of the Jerry Joneses of the world, of the dirty, nasty Daniel Snyders of the world. You are working up underneath them no matter what you do. We got one guy, Michael Jordan, one guy who owned anything of any note. One guy, like that's it. You know what I'm saying?
So pro leagues.
Yeah, I am. Because to me, remember when Isaiah Thomas was running the CBA? I love that. I love that. All your little dudes, your little Chris Evans, book it on down to the CBA, cuz.
And make $45,000 a year.
But here's the point: if he doesn't, because this is what I'm saying. They're going to have to keep sacrificing, because what else is there to do? Like, you keep waiting on these other people to sacrifice, and they're not going to. You know what I'm saying? You ain't going to get no magical sacrifice all of a sudden from these billionaires. That ain't happening. So you're going to have to continue sacrificing, and you need to get your mind set on that. Like, if you done hit your lick in the NBA, you hit it. Chris Silver,
there's a lot of dudes waiting.
And if you ain't hit it yet, then hey.
And I get to the point where I'm just tired. I'm tired of us always having to make the sacrifices.
But we do. Then that ain't gonna change.
Yeah, you're never gonna change somebody else's system. You can't force a billionaire, like put your pressure and make a billionaire spend his money on something. It ain't gonna work that way.
I think we're all in agreement that I would like that there's substantive action. No, listen. I would like there to be substantive action before they go back on the court, right? Mm-hmm. My thing is, I would like for them to come up with a list of demands and say, until these things are done. And I'm not talking about no pie in the sky shit. I'm not talking about we're not gonna get on the court till Breonna Taylor's killers get arrested, because that's not within the threshold of the NBA owners. But
nothing is within the threshold of the NBA owners. If you
their money is in the that's what I'm saying. I want them to say, listen, LeBron James has a foundation about stopping the suppression of voting. Give us $400 million for that foundation. Pledge your money. I would hold these motherfuckers. I'm trying not to curse because this is supposed to go on Dash Radio. I'm trying to hold these dudes for ransom. That's what I would do. You know what I'm saying? I would.
The ultimate way you hold for ransom in capitalism is you build the competitor. That's what you do in capitalism. What are we doing here on this network?
I'm talking about short term. Let's get some money out these dudes now before the November election. Listen, this is what I would be if this was me, right? And I'm up in front of all the players. I'm like, listen, bro, we all need to play. We all need this money. Y'all got families, I got families. We trying to build things. We're using our money. A lot of these dudes in that room are using their money to build systems and foundations to help their communities. We need the playoffs to finish, but let's not step foot on that court till we get concessions from the owners and from this league of what they're going to do to help us enact real change. And I want concrete. I want concrete.
Take a long time too, though, bro, because you got to get what 30 owners to agree to put money up. You know what I mean? Like,
and then don't play till they say yes.
So then so we're not playing again. You know what I mean? So
that's what I'm saying. You gotta be willing. You gotta be willing to take it to the wall and be like, okay, we out. That's what I'm saying. But my ultimate goal in this whole, all right, let's transition it this way, because we get into a real light skin opinions. This is what our shows are like, folks. If you're not listening to the Light Skin Opinions podcast,
we usually make fun of each other more, but
a whole lot more.
I'm trying to be serious.
And usually our roles are reversed. Alpha is more wild and I'm more moderate. But tonight, for some reason, it's Freaky Friday or Thursday or whatever. But yeah. But basketball wise, let's talk a little bit about this. What do you think it feels like in the bubble? What do you think that it feels like emotionally? We got these stories coming out recently. Paul George going through some things, I don't want to say blaming his slump or, he was going through it, so therefore he was playing poorly. Now you have this event happen. And quickly, I saw Brian Urlacher typing, and you have other athletes who say things and do things, and you're in this bubble and you're isolated from friends and family. What do y'all think that feels like in there? And y'all, Alf, I know you got crazy experiences.
I think the bubble actually helps them with the protest stuff. It makes it easier for them to communicate and figure out what they want to do. Chris Paul was right there, so I'm talking to a bunch of people yesterday. As far as being with your family, my bad. What you got?
No, go ahead, finish.
I was just gonna say, be away from your family. I think that's just dependent on each person. You know what I mean? Like, people like George was depressed, but Luka was feeling fine. Like, Dame and Luka was in that bubble. I think.
But what I'll say for a guy like Jaylen Brown who wants to be out there with his people, you know what I'm saying? Or Malcolm Brogdon, who actually the Heat sent him home, but some of these guys who like want to be a part of this, they feel powerless in the bubble, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that's that's what's hard for some of these guys. There's guys who feel like the bubble amplifies their voices, and there's going to be other guys who feel like the bubble quiets them.
Yeah,
you know what I mean. So it's how many times like the 12th guy on the Bucks on the Bucks bench, how many times does he get interviewed after a game and says, arrest Breonna Taylor's killers? He don't get interviewed, right?
Mm-hmm.
But maybe he could be out there in the streets protesting, holding up signs, and doing something. Mm-hmm. Okay, wait. Put this up. Per Shams, an NBA players only owners meeting. Players challenge owners to be proactive, not reactive to social justice changes. Create actions, not simply financial commitments. Listen,
but even that to me is like very vague.
Vague.
What is that? Like, what?
See, let me in the bubble and let me help these brothers out. I want checks. I want copies of checks. Like, I want signed commitments. I want concrete evidence of what you're gonna do.
Here's one thing I think you could do. Here's one thing I think they could do. It might not be much. I think you could say, "Hey, look, owners, we want you guys to make it a part of the charter of the NBA. It will create a new program to work on player creations on a daily basis." Okay,
vague.
But what? Then that's a cool one. That's kind of
cool. But I want something now. But what if going to get me to finish this postseason?
What if you put it in the charter of the NBA? You go in, you add an amendment to it in the charter of the NBA, and in that charter, you put in there that the NBA is a multicultural ethnic league that is committed to proper blah 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 blah. Then you could word whatever it is you want. But let's say like I don't know exactly. I can't think about it right now. But say you put something in and it made it part of the bones of the NBA. Does that not move it for you at all?
I mean,
you understand what I'm trying to say?
I do. I really do.
I get it, but what does it have to do with getting some change though in like legislation?
Because you can't really get change from legislation unless you get the NBA owners to agree to push some type of policy agenda, and then you got to develop a policy agenda, and they might be reluctant to that. But I'm saying if you put it inside the bones of in the charter of the giant corporation, you make it part of the inside of it. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is what the NBA is, and then with all that other stuff. Maybe that's more than just your verbal commitment, because that means the NBA moving forward, this will have to be a part of what it is, if that makes sense.
What I would demand, like, let's say I was sitting here leading the NBA Players Association, there'd be a few things. First of all, we need to set aside a money that does not come from us. Like, because we out here doing our own things in Chicago and Miami, Myers Leonard and Udonis Haslam putting all this money in Overtown and Liberty City, and Dwayne Wade up in Robbins, Illinois. Like, people are doing all kinds of stuff on their own. I want money coming out of the owner sides of the pocket to fund, and I'm not saying one side or the other on the political spectrum, to push voting initiatives, to push voter registrations, to push using your arenas as voting as voting polling places, to fund polling, to fund more poll workers, not strippers, poll workers at polling places because right now during COVID, it's a bunch of old people that usually work the polls, but they not the strip clubs, but that work the polls because they can volunteer their time.
Let me ask you this.
No, listen, use that money to pay poll workers. And the second thing I would do is say, you set aside money in each team and say, player voted and legislative initiatives, that money that's put by the owner of each franchise to back those initiatives, and the players vote what's the initiative they want. Let's say in Milwaukee, Giannis, Chris Middleton, and the rest of them boys get together and say, we want to support an initiative that we are going to back candidates that believe in police reform. The owner of the Milwaukee Bucks has to fund that initiative. That's the kind of things that I would push for. And until they agree to that, my black ass wouldn't play. You're going to be out there with Gordon Hayward versus, I don't know. I'm trying to think of a white guy, Vucevic, because he don't know what's going on.
But hold on. Gordon Hayward's down, bro. Gordon Hayward ain't going.
That's what I'm saying. It's going to be a bad game. One dude's gonna be on crutches. The other dude's just gonna be running up and down the floor, Magic and 6.
Do you envision what you just said? Because those are all very good ideas. Everything that you just said. Do you envision those things like moving on, like into like the duration of the time that the NBA exists? Because those things sound to me like it's still be a bit temporary. Like until you might age out of it, and they might say one day, hey, well, we no longer need to do this anymore. Like the tide is kind of turned, maybe, or there's no more public pressure. Do you think that what you just said needs to be codified into, what the NBA is, into like its charter agreement of what it does?
I think you're right. I think it does need to be put into the charter. But what I think, okay, you're talking about long term. My thing is, what's the short term to get us through these playoffs? And anything that we put in to get us through these playoffs, I agree with you, should be in the NBA charter going forward. But I think my whole thing, because we got to wrap up soon, because we're only supposed to go about 45 minutes. My whole thing is, I want to see substantive change come from this quote unquote boycott. But what I don't want to see is these men go home with no change and less money in their pockets going forward. That's my thing. I would like whatever happens to come from the league, come from ESPN, come from TNT, come from NBA TV, come from ABC, come from Disney. Whatever's going to happen that gets these black men back on that court needs to come from outside of their own pockets, because they've done enough. And that's what I'm sick of. I'm sick of us doing.
They gotta walk, because it's not gonna. If they come back and play and finish this, I don't think it's gonna happen.
Parrish, but what I'm trying to tell you, don't come back until you get that. I think we're on the same page there.
That's canceling the season. That's what I'm saying. That's canceling the season. Ultimately,
okay. If honestly, I'm with y'all. If you don't get no substantive change from this, if you don't get no concrete deals and things in writing and checks signed and cash, then I'm with y'all.
I just think what you're talking about. What I think you're talking about takes longer than a few days to fix. You know what I mean? Like
when that money's involved, it won't. I guarantee you, people get to that. Listen, man, we've seen a lot. We've seen multi-billion-dollar legislation come down to the final day when people are ready to walk away from the table. This can happen, and if you're about that, I'm walking away life, and they look. Let
me ask you, who you want writing real quick. All right, let's end on a. Who do you want?
Sean Whiteside doing all the negotiating.
That's right, P. Who you got? Which NBA player you have doing all the negotiation? Wrong names only. Come on, P.
I was gonna say Jimmy Butler.
That might be wrong. I think I'll go with Jimmy.
We get what we wanted if Jimmy Butler was doing the negotiation.
Sure. I think I'll go
everybody.
I think I'll go Joel Embiid.
I want Deion Waiters doing it.
Deion Waiters.
No, J.R. Smith. I want J.R. Smith doing the negotiation.
And I'm still playing.
No.
I've been ignoring some of these arguments in the comments. I don't know if you guys have watched this, but one thing I want, and because I really can't deal with these people that justify what happened to Jacob Blake. One thing I will say, resisting arrest is not a death penalty. It does not justify murder. Supposedly reaching for a knife in your car that you don't see does not justify murder. Being alleged guilty of a crime does not justify murder in the streets. The fact that he had a warrant for whatever he had does not justify him being murdered in the streets. The man survived, but they tried to kill him. All right. Okay, let's say he was going for a knife. They tried to kill this man for going for supposedly going for a knife in his pretty nice SUV with 3 kids in the back.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. If that was a white man, we've seen white men armed to the teeth get taken down peacefully. Mm-hmm. We've seen Dylan Roof kill 9 people in a church, and they got the motherfucking Burger King. Okay? The kid who shot up the school that Christopher Maddox right in front of you was working at was taken away peacefully. This black man
And still alive right now, sitting in jail.
This black man was shot 7 times in his back. And if you want to keep telling me that it's not about race, it's not about this, okay, let's say it's not about race. It's wrong. If he was a white guy, it's wrong.
It's wrong.
But we've seen time and time again. Time and time again.
17-year-old that killed 2 people.
Dude, the 17-year-old just shot two people in Wisconsin. He waved at the police and they gave him a bottle of water.
Got picked up from his house the next day.
And let me tell y'all,
didn't get slammed.
All these white people in the comments, and I'm sorry to single y'all out. You've never spent one day as a black man. Spend one day as a black man and understand the fear that comes with every single police encounter, because you know whether you are armed or whether you're not, your skin color is an automatic threat.
Hey, y'all stop arguing. Y'all stop arguing with Pedro I am, man. This guy just in here I'm
not even worried about these simpletons in the comments. I'm talking to everybody out there that's watching this. Spend a day in the shoes of a black man and understand the fear that comes with police encounters, because you know, as a black man, because of the color of your skin, whether you don't have to be armed. Your skin color is the threat from jump, and the police are at a heightened state of anxiety when they approach you and when they encounter you. Understand that and understand the fear that comes with that, and then maybe you will understand why we're pissed off right now.
They'll never understand it. They'll never understand it. But if you lack basic human empathy, there's something you will never understand. You will never, if you cannot empathize, if you cannot see the wrongness, the evil in shooting a man, any man in any situation 7 times in his back.
In the back.
I mean, come on, man. Then there's nothing you can say to that person. You know, there's nothing you can say to that guy.
All right, y'all. Well, we're gonna sign off because we've gone over our time. All right. Check out Light Skin Opinions. We recorded an episode last night that if Parrish has a say in it, will come out in the next 3 weeks. No.
I thought this was the show we was dropping. You still want me to do that?
This is actually going to go on the 5 on the Floor feed. It's actually going to go up on Dash Radio. There's going to be a bunch of people listening in their car tomorrow. Not going to know what's going on.
Thank y'all for listening. Thank y'all for tuning in, man. You know, we appreciate it. This was beneficial in terms of usually we'd be in our homes just talking about this stuff on the phone. It's we hope that us having said anything tonight possibly could have helped, or you know, maybe you could use it in your next argument with a dude like Pedro I am a cock. Oh yeah, that's his name. All right.
Well, at least we made y'all think, if nothing else. All right, y'all. Check y'all out on Light Skin Opinions. Hopefully, if the NBA comes back, I'll check y'all out on 5 on the Floor. Peace. Y'all have a good night.
They're gone.